So there were two important meetings about OWGR points at the Open Championship, and that's today's show. What were these meetings all about? One of them was with the committee, the OWGR committee, the official World Golf Ranking Committee, that is overseeing LIV Golf's application to get points there. And that committee is comprised of the CEOs, leaders of the majors, the four majors. And there was a couple technical points. We're going to get to that. And the second meeting was much more interesting politically meeting even than that first meeting. And that is a meeting between Martin Slumbers, CEO of the R&A, and Yasir Al-Rumayyan, governor of the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and a party, of course, the party that's in the framework agreement, working towards NUCO and the combination of pro golf around the world, talking to one of the guys that's voting on his OWGR application at the Open Championship on Sunday, which meant something. So what do you think of all that? A lot of intrigue, Dark Star.
Well, I'm going to get right into just to get cut to the chase, the Munoz Conundrum. So there's
which I love the naming.
I love that.
Munoz
so there's
Conundrum.
There's an article, and as I use the phrase coercion by coincidence.
I love that too.
All right. Because
Munoz is on LIV.
Munoz is on LIV. There's an article in Golf Digest that talked about how he lagged a putt. They're inferring he lagged a putt.
In the Orlando tournament. Before the Masters. For LIV, the LIV tournament.
A two-putt, his team wins the team competition in Orlando.
By one.
If he makes the birdie, he ties for first place and goes to a playoff.
With Koepka.
Mm-hmm. So the OWGR, and backed by the PGA Tour, as a negotiating ploy, is turning this into a big deal. Like, yeah, this team aspect, destroys the competition in some way, etc., blah, 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 which I find absurd, okay? Mm-hmm. Because every golfer who has to worry about a paycheck at some point shoots to the middle of the green, knows he has to two-putt. Now, this was a particular scenario that is working out in favor of the PGA Tour as from a negotiating ploy. But I'm going to call it it's the anti-Tiger phenomenon, was my point to this. Tiger never had to shoot away from a pin because he never had to worry about money. The Munozes, the guys in the middle of the LIV Tour, the guys in the middle of the PGA Tour, they're trying to make a living. That's all they're doing is thinking about, if I par this hole, I finish fourth by myself. If I'm T5 with 75 other guys, it's going to cost me $200,000, $300,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So
one shot is incredibly meaningful.
And by the way, and I
a lot of the time,
I've seen a lot of golf this year. I'm a fan. I want to say Munoz was left edge of the green, and it was a fairly lengthy. It wasn't like it was a makeable putt. Mm-hmm. It was a 1 in 10 putt to begin with.
They said 20-footer. I thought I read.
Okay, it was a 20-footer. I
thought so. Mm.
Anyway, so it's a 20-footer. So he's got a 1 in 10.
The implication that he sort of, not literally, but sort of lagged it versus trying to make it.
But as I said, it comes from the interview after.
Correct. His own words, Munoz's own words.
His own words. But the words came from a leading question. Were you thinking about the team?
Well, you've made the point. The point is that, so what if he lagged it? And he didn't, but so what if he was forced to be cautious because he was thinking about his teammates and securing the team victory by one shot? Good for him. Great for him, actually. But your point is, hey, that happens in golf all over the place.
That happens.
If you're going to single that out as being meaningful to you're not trying to win, therefore you're corrupting the point system somehow for the OWGR is ludicrous in your view, because that's all over the place. Rahm doesn't need to shoot away from pins. He doesn't need to lag. He doesn't need to finish second or third in order to make the electric bill, is your point, because he's very well sponsored and all, at this point in his life, and he had to get there, of course. They all did, but Rory, Rahm, all those top 20 guys, top 10 for sure, don't have to worry about money for the most part, and therefore that fact is corrupting the point system because let's remind our audience.
Yes, too.
The OWGR changed their formula last August of 22 to make winning more valuable than it was before. Who did that help? that
Helped
guy
your
again,
stars.
that guy, that
It-
Rory
well, it
Fowler
helped
guy
all-
again.
It helped all the stars who don't need to worry about money. Who
But
don't
remember,
need to
Rory
shoe
was
and
out
pin.
talking a lot about the OWGR last August. Like, well, it's eminently fair. I see how it's fair. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, because it helps you a lot. If you're the guy that has a $100 million Nike contract in the rearview mirror and a lot of other endorsement deals, good for you, Rory. You've earned it. Yeah, you're winning is all you're trying to do.
Yeah. Every week,
All you're
that's
trying
all
to
he
do.
has to do.
You're not worried about a paycheck.
No,
Ever.
But that's why another reason he's a great come from behind player. It frees him up, and he doesn't care if he makes a triple. Whether I win the tournament or make $200,000 this
Well,
week
you know what?
is irrelevant to my financial standing. Whereas all these other guys, whether it's Munoz or anybody like that, they're thinking about a paycheck many, many times. Also, just really quick on the OWGR with the changes, the LIV guys dropped like hot rocks
They did.
all of a sudden.
Yeah, amazing how that worked.
And Will Zalatoris, as I mentioned, hasn't played in a year, and he's still
Yeah.
18th in the world?
Yeah,
now,
it's-
if he can't swing a club, I could beat him. I'm sure of that. Now, if he can swing a club, he's going to beat me. But if he can't swing
Not
the
in
club...
every element of the game, probably.
Anyway,
But
yeah.
let me ask you, you're a surgeon, and you know something about fast twitch, slow twitch muscles. When you're coming under extreme stress, which is produced by what? Is that adrenaline? What's producing that stress? Cortisol? What is it generally? It's a chemical thing, I think. Is that right?
Well, yeah, let's just, for simplification, it's adrenaline.
Adrenaline. Okay. So you're under
fight-
pressure.
You're fight or flight, like anything
It's
else.
affecting your delicate movements.
You get a sympathetic response. Your heart rate goes up. You start sweating.
Does that
et cetera.
affect your big muscles or little muscles, your slow twitch, your fast twitch? I mean, if you're having to do microsurgery and make very small movements precisely, is stress helpful or hurtful to that situation?
Well, it's clearly, obviously, hurtful. It's whether it's big muscles or small muscles is irrelevant.
All of it. Your nervous system's not functioning
Right.
at optimal
You're
level.
you're not at peace with.
So it's going to affect the putting mostly,
I would say
and
the
chipping,
putting,
I
yeah.
guess, because those require more precise movements rather than a full speed, full swing, which is why the guys on tour say, I want a full shot when I'm under pressure, right?
Now, what I will say is, this is when you see guys go left if you're a right-hander. I'll never forget when Rory was
Because of the stress.
because of the stress.
What? Because it makes your body sequence
Yeah, your
falter?
sequences differently. Your I don't know how your swing speeds up. When I will tell you
It
this,
gets quicker.
when Rory had the dominant lead, what was it, like 2011 in the Masters?
Oh, and he hit it into the.
Well, I'm not talking even about 10. I'm not talking
He
about
hit it
10.
to Reynolds, Lake
hit it-
Oconee.
But that's not even my point. My point is
Not
on the
10.
first hole, he went a little left off the drive,
Mm-hmm.
and then it ended up being a good shot, catching. I want to say but he was long and left on the green on number one,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked over at the people I was watching it with, because I have that stupid memory, and said, "This is going to be a tournament. He's going left." And that's all I said. He's going left, which means he's nervous.
He was still in it. The audience will remember this because I remember this. He's in it. He's in it. He's in it. The lead is shrinking. I think I forget how much the lead was, but he gets to the 10th tee, and he hits it. I mean, he hit it into the Atlantic Ocean practically. I mean, because Nick Faldo was on the broadcast.
Faldo was on the broadcast.
He said, "I didn't even know there was a house over there."
I didn't know there were houses there.
It's,
All right, but
it's
anyway.
on the other side of the woods,
Right.
off the tee with a 3-wood.
Right. But anyway,
I mean, that's not easy to
Yeah.
do with a lofted fairway metal. I mean, you got to be kidding.
I'm sorry, I got you off
Sorry.
track.
Well, it was
there.
about fast twitch. So you're under pressure.
nerves,
So
it's-
the key part of winning golf tournaments, everybody knows this in our audience, right? You plugged in golfers, putting. It's putting. Is it putting? It's putting. It's putting, putting, putting.
Well, I've heard from a professional, the guy that wins the tournament makes half his putts over 20 feet or 20 to 30 feet.
Yeah. And if you're a great iron player, you have a proximity that helps your putting. Obviously, you drive in the fairway, you hit it closer, you make more putts. It's all a happy cycle. But you must putt. Sergio Garcia, who hits it close all the time and can't putt. Rory, who hits it close a lot of the time, not as good with the wedge game, but can't putt as well as he can hit the ball. But it's about putting at the elite level. And if you're under stress,
Right. But I'm going to summarize.
gonna be affected.
Right. And I'm going to summarize like you usually do. The whole point of this, whether it's the OWGR or the sponsorships, it's designed to relax the star players so they can win more.
big advantage.
Big advantage.
Big
yeah.
advantage. So the meeting that went on there with the OWGR committee overseeing the LIV application at the Open Championship, had to do with these technical points, the Munoz Conundrum. Is it really, how do we address that? They're basically firing back to LIV saying, hey, you have to tell us at the OWGR how you're going to correct this team element kind of corrupting, if you will, the purity of trying to win the tournament. And LIV has already responded and said, you're crazy.
Yeah, and
like
I
you
agree.
did.
Yeah.
You're nuts. No. And your point is...
Because on Earth, that's absurd.
Well, because you're saying that happens everywhere in golf. You can't single out this particular instance. Yes, it happens in that instance, but it happens over here. And your point is it happens with the money. It happens with being freed up versus not being freed up. So John Rahm is corrupting the system by being freed up because he doesn't have to worry about money to go at every pin and make every putt with aggressive strokes. Fine. The other meeting that took place... So let's put a dot on that, actually. We didn't do that. We did it in the podcast, but not here yet. So
do we want to hear one more famous...
Go ahead.
One more famous Chip Beck laying up at the Masters when Langer won in the...
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyway.
I do remember that.
Now
that goes
back
way
to
back.
That goes way back. That's for our older fans.
So the point is that why is OWGR committee overseeing the LIV application bringing this up? And there was another point they made too, which is the qualification system for LIV. It's an invitational. There's no qualification. LIV saying, what do you mean we bring Asians? We're having relegation and all that, elevation, relegation. We're doing all that. And the OWGR is saying, well, yeah, but not really. It's not, it's more like an invitational thing. And you don't have a qualification system. We're worried about that too. So they're bringing up these two technical points. Why? Because of the negotiations that are going on between the aristocracy represented by the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour and PIF. That negotiation, we're saying the PGA Tour, we've been saying all along, year now, over a year, the PGA Tour has no cards. They have no stack. They're at the poker table with really nothing in front of them, and they can't bluff because they don't have the money to bluff. They got nothing. But they do have one thing. Well, they have nothing. But what if they're pulling a rabbit out of a hat, what do they have? OWGR. They have the ability to help LIV get into the OWGR system, and it even says that in the framework agreement. We'll use good faith and best efforts, those are the words, to help LIV get points. Why? Because LIV wants the majors, and the majors is all that matters to LIV. They don't care about PGA Tour events. Yeah. And here we are with the OWGR itself seeming to throw a little roadblock, a little speed bump in the way of LIV right in the middle of these day-to-day, week-to-week negotiations for the deal.
And as the PGA Tour has done, they're negotiating in the court of public opinion all the time.
That's all they got.
That's all they have.
So
they're hoping the Munoz Conundrum's worth $100 to $250 million.
Yes,
probably.
Let's make that connection because then we'll go to the next point. And it seems like we're always under time pressure these days.
By the way, was the pulling the rabbit out of the hat, was that a Denny Crane reference?
That is a good show.
Denny Crane.
If you're not watching reruns of Boston Legal, is that the name of that thing?
Yeah.
Then you're missing out. And I haven't seen it in a long time.
I don't know what made me think of Denny Crane.
God, that's a good show. That's a great scripted comedy, and you should watch it. Shout out to the guys that wrote that show. Boston Legal is in syndication somewhere in America. You probably get it worldwide. That's got to be on Netflix or Prime, actually. Probably has it too, Prime Video. Why would the OWGR be throwing a speed bump in front of LIV? Shazam! Right at the time, what is it, July 25th? We're a couple of almost coming in on 2 months since the announcement, June 6th. And the negotiations, major seasons is over, and the negotiations are going to take front and center now, and they want to get that done this year. We think it will get done this year. Funny that the speed bump comes along. Well, what does it mean? What could it possibly be for? Because the deal is going to happen. Make no mistake. We said it first, and we're sticking by that. Money. Price. It's the price. It's the cost of access to the ecosystem that Ed Herlihy, as a professional, experienced attorney, by nature and by livelihood, is negotiating the best possible deal for his client, the PGA Tour, and really the golf aristocracy. And as we said in the podcast, if the PIF is offering $1.75 billion, Ed's coming back with $2 billion. If the PIF offers $2 billion, Ed's coming back with $2.25 billion. And it just keeps going. And all the while, Ed is a professional, and his team, Jimmy Dunn, and some of the other guys that are negotiating it, are saying, here's the reasons why we got these assets, we got these sponsors, we got this TV contract, we have influence over the OWGR, and la la la. And meanwhile, the PIF and Yasir are like, okay, what's it going to take? And they'll keep doing that until they get the number that PIF's willing to walk away.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
That's how it's probably
Until-
going to take place.
yeah.
And PIF will eventually say, we're pretty happy with the 2.5. We're very comfortable with that number, Ed. And we understand your position. You call us.
Right.
We're very comfortable at 2.5. And Ed needs to make the professional decision whether he's got these guys as far as they're willing to go, because let's get real. If PIF walks away and it's over, the PGA Tour is in bad shape.
Because if you're a star on the PGA Tour, you have to go to LIV.
If LIV throws another contract out there for not even 100, they offer Cantlay $50 million, or not even. They offer Victor Hovland. There's no reason not to go now because you guys negotiated with them. Why can't I go? So we've been over that. So the PGA Tour needs this deal, but the OWGR is their bargaining point. Why? For more cash. They want to get a better price. Period. Simple as that. True?
True, absolutely. That's
All right.
the whole point to this.
Let's go to the second meeting, which was between Martin Slumbers at the Open Championship and Yasir Al-Rumayyan. Along these same lines, here's what are these two guys meeting for? I mean, to talk about how they make beef brisket? No, it's not. They're not exchanging recipes of their favorite espresso drinks. What are they doing? Why are they meeting? It can only be two things: personal or business. So do I want to get to know Mr. Slumbers if I'm Al-Rumayyan, or the other way around? Or do we have a couple of things we really want to talk about? What do we exactly do? I think that Slumbers asked for the meeting, but we don't know. It's in the press that it happened, but we don't. It was on Sunday of the championship. So I'm saying it's breakfast. It's in the podcast. We have that conversation. But I think it's breakfast, so it's relatively quick. And I think it was Slumbers that wanted it. And I'm going to tee up right here another show that I want to do, at least. Maybe I'll drag you into it. If the PIF decides to elevate a tournament in Australia, like the Australian Open or the PGA over in Australia, to a big deal, meaning put a big purse there, make it $25 million, something north of where the R&A is for the Open Championship, that puts pressure on all the majors with the exception of the Masters. All three of those, particularly the Open Championship and the PGA Championship. U.S. Open, still the second highest, and most important major to date of the four. But I think that the PIF has already written that letter to Australia, and if they haven't, they will soon. But that might have been part of that. I don't know that. I'm not saying that Yasir would say that to Slumbers, but Slumbers' interest is, let's not get forgotten here.
Well, I think
with the Open Championship.
Well, the Open's obviously in a unique position. I think it is revered as the top major for everybody who doesn't
you
live
made
in
that
the
point in
United
the podcast.
Right.
So it's the top major outside
the United
the
States.
US.
So the point is they're getting together, with a little bit of massaging. Al-Rumayyan now has a true ally, potentially. So they get to know each other. They have breakfast,
Slumbers,
as
you
you
mean.
said. Yeah, in Slumbers. Obviously, Britain and
I like that point.
Obviously, there's not any money on the European or DP tour.
Nothing says friendship more than, we were thinking about funding this Australian event. We think growing the game, Martin. And I know you're big at that, Martin. We're gonna make that Australian Open a $25 million event in 2025, and I think you'd be all for that, right? Meanwhile, Slumbers is like,
well, the point that we're making here is
it's we like you to give the money, but we want you to give to us.
Yeah, it's easier for Al-Rumayyan to get garner the support of the British Open, because
R&A.
obviously the R&A is hurting probably more than anybody for cash.
I think it's the smallest purse.
It is. I'm pretty sure it was the smallest purse
of the majors.
Yeah.
I think so.
And
We'll look that up.
yeah, and now you have what have I said? The LIV Tour wants to be the World Tour. Mm-hmm. This is going to be
Having a major in Australia makes all kinds of sense.
Yeah.
To me, and that's a phenomenal additional leverage point that the PIF brings over who? The R&A, really, especially them. And you make that excellent point that they're the only offshore from America major. Those are, again, we hate coincidences here at the Thinking Man Show. And the PIF point we made on another show, and then I got to get out. The NUCO, the PIF, needs two big tournaments that are not the four majors. That's an important element to this whole thing. It's the Players' Championship maybe on the PGA Tour and the President's Cup which would be a team thing that they could elevate and change the name and make that LIV versus PGA. We think those are kind of no-brainers. But why wouldn't we, the NewCo, own a big majority part of this big new tournament in Australia? Oh, I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't do that. And Australia would like that. Our fans in Australia, what do you think? Let us know. I like that. I like that a lot. And Greg Norman, he's from Australia. So he's already thought about this, right? I mean, he and Yasir must have talked about this. Let's get a $25 million tournament in Australia.
It's a great swing.
That's not a LIV event. Right. Obviously, LIV already had it.
It's a great swing in the calendar to go to Singapore, go to Australia. If I'm a LIV guy, it's a great thing. It's almost like if I'm a LIV guy, can we not elevate it? We like to just go to Singapore and Australia on our own and enjoy it without those rest of those guys.
They had the $20 million LIV event or whatever that purse is, obviously. But I'm saying a tournament that's open to PGA Tour players and LIV players, all of them in Australia, that challenges the status of the Open Championship in England. Not in tradition, but in player attention.
But sponsor attention. I guess my point to just this second meeting that I'm kind of changing position a little bit is it's more of Al-Rumayyan's thinking, I have a potential ally in the Open Championship in Slumbers, because they're kind of on the other side of the pond, and they could be swayed in my direction. And it's all the negotiations are starting. You see, obviously, as I said, the collusion of the media. They're not, nobody's calling Brandel and telling him to keep doing what he's doing. Nobody called Golf Digest and told him to put this article in about Munoz, right?
Mm-hmm. Nope. They need access to keep their jobs, so they are instinctively going to support the entities that support them through their employment. Yeah, you're not going to, if you really want to be a member of your local private club, you're not going to yell at the president of the club when you see that person in the grocery store. Duh. You're going to instinctively behave a certain way because you want something that they have. And so, Golf Channel is beholden to NBC, which is beholden to their TV contract. And TV contract is at the PGA Tour. It has nothing to do with LIV. So why in the world would NBC Sports give a rip about LIV? They wouldn't. And NewCo will change that. But these meetings were fascinating. The two meetings, they're in the press, and we will follow up on Twitter. It's already in the podcast, so go there with a long conversation, 60 minutes, I think. Well, almost 60 minutes we did there. Till then, I think we're ready.
Yeah.
B-Team is out.
Dr. Darkstar's out.
If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe to our new audio podcast, Unfiltered and Off Script. That is where you will get all of our show prep material, wide-ranging conversation on how we come up with these topics, what we choose to zero in on that makes it to the video and the YouTube format, as well as topics that'll never get to YouTube. And there are a lot of those that we like to talk about that'll never make it to YouTube. So look in the description below for the link over to Substack. That's where you can subscribe to the podcast. And thank you again for being a fan.